Having plenty was never meant for hoarding, it was meant for giving. That was the creed Asher Calloway preached and lived by. Neighbors whispered that he owned more land than a man could ride across in a day, more cattle than he could brand in a season, and yet people remembered him less for his wealth than for the way he used it. A sack of flour left at a widow's porch, a saddle quietly bought for a ranch hand who couldn't afford one. Asher believed abundance was a calling, and his calling was to share it. But for every man with abundance, there was someone with none. Clara Morrell had little more than a patched dress, 2 children with hungry mouths, and a name dragged through the dust of every saloon and street corner. Yet she carried herself with the dignity of a woman who refused to kneel under shame. That morning she walked farther than she cared to count, her son's small hand tugging at her skirt, her baby girl heavy in her arms. When she reached the row-iron gate of the Calloway ranch, she paused. Nailed into the weathered wood was a hand-painted sign that read, "If I light your path, don't turn around and smoke me out." The words struck harder than the prairie wind. Clara had lit paths before, only for men who left her in darkness, mocked her, abandoned her. But this place, she told herself, might be different. Beyond the gate stretched the wide sweep of Asher Calloway's land, glimmering in the late summer light. She squared her shoulders and stepped forward, carrying nothing but her courage, her children's future, and the fragile hope that abundance might finally meet need. The cabin Clara once called home had grown thin with neglect. Wind whistled through cracks. Elias Brandt had promised to fix come spring. 2 springs had passed, and still the wind cut through. Clara pressed her hand to her swelling belly, 6 months along. Her husband's eyes had turned colder each day the child grew. "Another mouth to feed," he muttered that morning, spitting tobacco juice by the door. Their boy Danny, barely 4, clung to Clara's skirts as Elias stomped around, kicking whatever he could find. Elias had been out of work 3 months, ever since the Silver Butte mine closed. Other men had found ranch work or gone west chasing opportunity. Elias stayed planted on the porch, whiskey in hand when he could afford it, bitterness in hand when he couldn't. "Maybe if you'd kept your legs closed, we wouldn't be in this mess," he snarled one night, reeking of liquor. Clara stayed silent, needle steady as she mended Danny's shirt. Silence was safer. But Elias never stopped. "Folks say this one came too quick. Maybe I ain't the only man warming your bed." Her needle slipped. Blood dotted the fabric. Danny cried, and Clara pulled him close. The man she had married was gone. The breaking point came one September Tuesday. Clara walked to town, clutching her boy's hand, her body heavy with the child she carried. When they returned, Elias was waiting with his bags packed. "I'm done," he said. "Heading to California. Heard there's gold still to be found." "What about Danny? What about the baby?" He finally looked at her, eyes cold as ice. "What about him? That baby ain't mine. Neither's the boy, far as I can tell. I ain't staying to raise bastards." The cruelty knocked the air from her chest. She stumbled back, hand over her belly. "Elias, please, these are your children." But he was already on the porch. "You want to survive? You figure it out yourself." And then he was gone, leaving nothing but his echoing boots and the sour stink of abandonment. Danny cried for his papa 3 days straight. Clara sang lullabies through her own breaking heart. When at last he stopped asking when Papa was coming home, she packed what little they had and walked to her mother's house outside Dry Creek. Martha Morrell said nothing when she opened the door. She simply wrapped her arms around her daughter. "Come in, darling. Come home." Pause here, friends, and think about it. What would you have done in Clara's place? Would you have begged him to stay or let him walk? Share your thoughts, because her story was only beginning. Across the valley, under the vast Montana sky, Asher Calloway stood on his porch, watching the sunrise paint the mountains gold. At 38, he had everything a man was supposed to want: thousands of cattle, land that reached to the horizon, money enough to buy whatever struck his fancy. And yet, the house behind him echoed hollow. His father's hands had built this ranch from nothing. Asher had doubled the herd, tripled the land. Folks called him fair, generous, but they also called him the man who couldn't keep a wife. His first, Lily Vaughn, had left after doctors told them he was infertile. Within a year she remarried, bore a son, proof of his failure. His second, Delilah Hollow, had abandoned him more cruelly. On their wedding day, the church filled with guests, the preacher ready, and she never arrived. A letter delivered instead. I cannot bind myself to a man who cannot give me children. The humiliation was complete. Since then, Asher poured himself into the ranch. No women, no risks, just work. When his longtime housekeeper retired, he posted a notice at Dry Creek's general store, seeking married woman for housekeeping position. Generous wages. Apply in person at Calloway Ranch. Married women he thought were safe. They wouldn't chase him, wouldn't try to trap him. Weeks passed with no luck. Then Harlan Pike, his foreman, brought word one October morning. Boss, there's a woman here about the housekeeper job. Clara Morrell. Husband ran off. She married, technically. Never heard of no divorce. That was enough. She met his terms. Clara stepped into Asher's office, and something stirred in him he thought long dead. She wasn't flashy. Her dress was worn, her hair pulled back plain, but her eyes, steady, storm-weathered, caught him. They spoke of survival. The interview was short. Married? He asked. Yes. Children? 2. Can you cook and clean? I've done it since I was 12. It was all he needed. She started Monday. Her first day dawned crisp and cold. She left her children with Martha and walked 45 minutes to the ranch. The house loomed large, bigger than she'd ever imagined living in. Asher greeted her in the kitchen. Mrs. Morrell, he said, voice even, right on time. Yes, sir. He showed her the rooms, explained the work, never condescending, always respectful. The house is yours to manage as you see fit. I trust your judgment. And meals? She asked. He smiled faintly. I've been eating my own cooking for 2 years. Anything you make will be an improvement. For the first time in months, Clara felt seen as more than a burden. She threw herself into work. She scrubbed, polished, baked, mended. By noon of her first day, the place looked new. The ranch hands noticed. Wes Tanner, young and quick-smiled, joked, "Smells like heaven in here. You're a lucky man, boss." Asher shut it down cold. Mrs. Morrell is here to work, nothing more. The whispers came anyway. Dry Creek never missed a chance for gossip. She landed on her feet, Mrs. Patterson muttered. Working for the richest man, getting gifts, special treatment, makes you wonder what services she's really providing. But Asher kept his respect clear. Once a month, he left small gifts, lavender soap, a shawl for the cold walk home, vanilla for her baking. Practical, thoughtful. Clara wept the first time she opened one. When had anyone last noticed her hard work? If you're feeling Clara's struggle here, that mix of gratitude and shame, make sure you stay with this story. Because the tide of her life was about to turn again. One day, Clara found a newspaper in Asher's office. A headline, "Local man strikes gold in California." Beneath it, a photograph of Elias Brandt, her husband. Wealthy now, arm around a jeweled woman. Engaged. Clara crumpled, sobbing in Asher's chair. When he found her, he didn't scold. He led her outside. They walked the ridge as the sun bled gold over the land. "When did you last love anything?" he asked. "My children," she said. "The smell of bread baking, the sound of rain. But myself, I don't know if I ever will again." He stopped, turned to her. "You're strong, Clara. His choices don't define you. You didn't deserve to be abandoned." Something cracked open between them. When he kissed her, she didn't pull away. That night in the kitchen lamplight, they became more than employer and housekeeper. For the first time, Clara knew what it meant to be cherished, not used. Days later, Asher found her hanging laundry. "Move in here, with the children. People will talk. Then marry me." Her breath caught. "You need to know," he said softly. "I can't give you more children. I'm sterile." She silenced him with a kiss. "I already have children. What I need is love." "Yes, Asher, I'll marry you." Clara and her children moved to the Calloway Ranch. Danny thrived. Lydia toddled happily. The ranch hands accepted her, but town was harsher. At church, Mrs. Patterson hissed, "Living in sin, disgraceful." Asher didn't flinch. "If any of you have a problem with my choices, take your business elsewhere. I won't hear you insult the woman I intend to marry." Respect shifted. But then came the blow. Harlan Pike brought word one evening. "Elias Brandt's back in town, wants his children." The words nearly froze Clara. Elias returned swaggering, gold-rich, and sharp-dressed. In the saloon, he shouted for all to hear, "I'm here for my wife and kids." Asher saddled 2 horses. "This is our fight." Here's where the story sharpens. Would you stand in the street against the man who abandoned you? Think about it, because Clara was about to. The main street filled. Elias smirked as Clara and Asher rode in. "I've come for my wife and children. The law's on my side." "You forfeited that when you walked away," Asher said. The crowd murmured. Some agreed with Elias. Blood was blood. Then a child's voice, "Mama." Danny slipped into the circle, Wes Tanner's hand on his shoulder. He stared at Elias. "Who is that man, Mama?" Elias spread his arms. "I'm your papa, boy." Danny shook his head. "My papa's taller, dark-haired. That man's not my papa. Papa Asher is." The crowd gasped. Moments later, Lydia toddled in. Elias knelt. "Come to Papa, baby girl." She blinked at him, then solemnly patted his knee. "Hello, Uncle." The street erupted in laughter. The children had chosen. Elias raged. "You poisoned them against me." Clara stood tall. "I never spoke against you. I just gave them love." Asher pulled a folded document from his coat. "Divorce papers. Filed for abandonment and cruelty. Legal and proper." The fight went out of Elias. He mounted his horse and rode out, a beaten man. The wedding came that December in the same church where Asher had once been humiliated. This time, Clara walked down the aisle radiant, Danny at her side, Lydia scattering petals. "Do you, Asher Calloway, take these children as your own?" "I do, with all my heart." The congregation wept as Lydia shouted "Papa," and Danny grinned up at him. At the ranch reception, neighbors celebrated not just a marriage but a family reborn. Later on the porch, Clara leaned into Asher's arms. "Any regrets?" he asked. "Only that it took so long to find you." Inside, Danny's voice read aloud to Lydia, their giggles carrying. They weren't perfect people. They were broken ones who had found a way to make each other whole. And in that Montana house, under the endless sky, they built a home filled with love, laughter, and abundance shared. If you believe love can rebuild what life has broken, hold on to this story and share it. Someone out there needs to know that hope is still possible.